What do you think is the biggest stumbling block that most people face with this kind of journey?
Honestly, is they have the woe is me mentality. It's too hard. Life isn't fair. These things in life are not easy for me. You look to your left and you look to your right and you start to judge yourself off other people. Like if you're a female, well, she's skinny and she doesn't work out as hard as I do. And everything starts to corrupt your mind. You start to look around too much at other people and what they're doing, and that starts to corrupt your own dialogue. We are judging ourselves against too many fucking people. You have to judge yourself against yourself. And that's the one thing I started learning, man. This isn't a race against me and Rich Roll. This is a race against David Goggins and David Goggins alone. And once you can silence all that bullshit, all the outside interference and things that are attracting your mind to everything, you can then start to grow and realizing I'm stressed out for no reason. This is my own little race. This is my own timeline. It was important for me to finally realize, stop being all these fake people I used to be, stop being afraid. There was no growth until I cut myself down to nothing, to the person I really was, the real human being. And once I found out who I really was, that's when I started growing. I was trying to build on top of a lied, fucked up foundation. You can't build a house on a fucked up foundation. So I had to get down to the actual mineral soil of who I was, and that's when you can start real growth.
And what is the role that suffering plays in that, or the willingness to suffer?
It starts to peel all those layers away, all those artificial layers away. If you're willing to suffer and go back in the grind, that internal dialogue you have with yourself when you're in misery and you're uncomfortable, it's a real, scary, unfiltered, no lying dialogue between you and yourself. And people know exactly what the fuck I'm talking about when you're in a bad spot in life and your mind is saying all kind of shit. That's who you really are. That's the real you. No Rocky Balboa moments going on up there. Yeah. You're like, hey, you know, it's round 14. Let's come on. We got this. No, it's like, fuck this. I'm out of here, man. This is crazy. That's where the growth happens. When you're able to stay in that moment and talk yourself back into the suck of wherever you're going through, and you start stripping those layers away. But as you're stripping those layers away, you're building calluses over top of shit in your mind. That's where the growth starts to happen, is when you have to force yourself to stay in it. You can't leave it. I don't think enough about people that have wronged me, or situations that have wronged me. Because once you've come to a place where you are really happy with who you are in life, no one fucks with you anymore. Even though they're fucking with you,
it doesn't fuck with you.
It doesn't fuck with you. You know, like all these, I used to be so hurt by everything in the military, and if someone did something or said something, like, man, I have overcome so much shit. There's not, I'm just in a really good headspace right now. My headspace, I own it. A lot of people own other people's headspace. I own my own shit now.
What do you mean own other? Like they're just all caught up in what other people think about them and running all these narratives in their mind.
That's right.
About...
They're more caught up in what other people think about them than how you feel about your own personal self. So a lot of people have their brain and their mind on rent to a whole bunch of motherfuckers in the world. I am paying rent on my own shit. I finally put a down payment on it, and I'm making payments every daggone day on my own fucking brain. So you don't fucking control that shit anymore, man. I got it.
So walk me through a day in the life. What's it look like right now?
Well,
I mean, it's got to be crazy.
Every morning I get up, I still get my run in every morning.
How do you structure the training?
The training is basically structured off of my schedule. So look at my schedule, and I say, okay, Jennifer, what do we have today? We have this at 7 o'clock in the morning. Roger that. That means I got to be up by 4 o'clock in the morning to run. That's how it works. That's how all my shit works. So she lays out the schedule of events.
2 hours. You just set it 2 hours earlier or whatever.
She says it could take an hour to get to Rich Rolls. Let's say we were at 7 o'clock today in the morning. It takes an hour to get to Rich Rolls with no traffic. Okay, let's block in an hour 15 for Rich Roll. Okay, we got that. The morning time, I'm gonna run 7 miles this morning. I need 52:30 for that. Roger that, put in. Shit, shower, shave, add that in. So the schedule dictates, but I have all that time.
Just push it back, right? So if that means getting up at 1:30.
Trust me.
Roger that.
I've done that several times.
Yeah.
Several
How much sleep
times.
do you usually get?
I like getting 7 to 8 hours of sleep. Nowadays I can do that. But there's times where the schedule says, hey man, you're getting 3 hours. And if that's the case,
right.
Merry Christmas. But guess what? Right now, it's easy to be happy. It's easy to smile. Those are the good times. The good times. Those times don't need to be trained. You know, I had to train myself for good times. Those times, for most people, don't need to be trained. What I'm trying to give you all is the misery of sometimes we go through in life. Those are the times we don't want to fucking talk about. We want to skip forward to peace. Let's skip all this pain and suffering and misery of real life. Let's cover it over, nice big blanket, and let's find peace. No. Sorry. It's not possible. Gotta go into that fucking hellhole of life that you have that fucked you up and fix it. And that's what I'm here to do.
You got to go to war with yourself before there's peace.
That's what I say in the book.
That's what you say in the book.
You must go to war with yourself before you find peace. So I'm trying to give you tools on how to do that. And I'm not considering smile and be happy about it. It's a hard journey. It's a real journey. It was so crazy. That's why I look at motivation. Motivation is just a spark, but those little sparks, if somebody comes by real quick with some water, that fire's down, it's out. But if you come by and that little fire, no one touches it, and that little fire, which is motivation, which is kindling, and that kindling grows off to, like they call it, 1 hour fuels, 2 hour fuels, 10 hour fuels, 10,000 hour fuels. You want that thing to boil over and catch a nice big log. It's gonna burn a long time. And that big log starts catching everything on fire. This is your soul. So motivation a lot of times can be fucking just put some water on it, puts it out. That motivation needs to turn into drive, passion, obsession to what you want to become. And once you become obsession or driven, it's a fucking inferno. So now you got to call in tons of firefighters and call in for help for here, call in for help from there. And they're not putting that shit out. Only thing that can take that thing out, it's got to burn itself out.
But obsession is self-generated. You can't
100%.
will another person to become obsessed.
Not at all.
That has to, be something that is cultivated from deep inside yourself.
Deep
and most people never experience what it's like to be obsessed. And I think we put a negative label. Label on obsession. Oh, he's obsessed.
No, to me, it's a daggone. It's a compliment. It's a compliment, man. To be. And a lot of times it can fuck you up. It can ruin your life. You can be obsessed, but I'll tell you one thing. If you want to be great, you want to be the baddest motherfucker ever at what you do, you could be misunderstood by everybody because you're going to be so fucking obsessed and so driven to get there. That's what it takes.
That's the truth.
It takes every second of your fucking life. Anybody says balance? Yeah, balance is important for a lot of fucking people. It is. But if you want to fucking go to that edge where people do not like you, don't understand you, question everything you fucking do, you've arrived. When you are misunderstood to the point where fucking people think you're psycho and you're nuts and you're this and that, why are you in the fucking gym at 1 o'clock in the fucking morning? You just got to doing an op for fucking 13, 14 hours after Ranger School, man, at the gym. What's wrong? You will never understand what is wrong with me. And that's why I'm so fucking glad you don't, because I'm in the right fucking spot. When people don't understand you anymore, you're in that spot of obsession and drive where people are like, what the fuck is wrong with this guy? I don't want to talk to you, man, because you're not going to get it. It's all about mindset.
Yeah.
That's it, man. You have to change the dialogue within your head. And one thing I guarantee you, there's some stat out there about January 1. All that kindling that you started, all that motivation, usually burn out by about 10 to 12 days later. So let's see how far you can take that shit. Let's see if you can get a fucking inferno going.
That is a challenge from Goggins to you.
Usually it's 10 to 12 days, man. People always come to me, man, hey, I want a workout program. I no longer give them anymore because you're going to waste my fucking time. Because I know most people out there, once that fucking one alarm clock goes off, the wrong time of the day, I'm not going to the gym.
Right. Or they get the workout program, but then they're like, hey, they hit you up again. What kind of watch do I need to get?
That's right.
What kind of shoes? The questions just keep coming.
Keep coming,
Every
man.
day goes by without anything going on.
Keep coming. Go to the store, buy a pair of shoes, and Merry Christmas. Have fun with that shit. Call me after you lose some fucking weight running your ass in the dirt, and then we'll work on some other shit.
Right on.
Get your base on. You have to look at suffering as almost like I look at failure. To succeed, you must fail. In failure and in suffering, all the answers are in there. All the answers to all the test questions. The test is your life. All the answers are in there. You don't have to live in suffering and pain and failure all the time. You have to learn, I need to visit it. Like people hate working out. You're only going to visit working out maybe an hour a day. 23 other hours of the day, you're not in it. But how you become in shape is you must visit suffering, visit working out 1 hour a day. Visit suffering 1 hour a day. Visit your past failures 1 hour a day. The relationship with it is the answers are in there. They are in there. Within the suffering, go in there, and I call it the live autopsy. The live autopsy. How you find out someone died? They crack you open after you're dead. How you can live is do it while you're alive. Go back in your brain, crack it open while you're alive. Don't wait until you're fucking dead to figure out why you died. Do it while you are living. Go in there, go into the suffering, go into the pain of your life and say, why did this suck for me so bad? Why am I afraid of all this stuff? Why have I shut down the whole world? I guarantee I'll tell you why you shut down the whole world. It's in these nooks of the suffering within your brain, in the scarring, are all the answers to why you are on the couch feeling sorry for yourself. They lie within the scars. Visit them for at least an hour a day. Study them. And then you'll find out more about yourself. You will then grow. So don't look at it as every day I suffer. Go into it an hour a day. Learn from yourself. Learn from life. Learn from your failures. Learn from your insecurities. Learn from your self-doubt. Don't just say, I'm afraid to jump off an airplane. What makes you afraid of it? Study it. That's why I studied my mind. Why I became so powerful in the mind is because I realized I was weak. So instead of running away from the mind, I dove into it and said, what is making me weak? Oh, this makes sense. I came from hell. I came from a place that beat me down to nothing, which is why I'm afraid. All this makes sense. So systematically, one by one, I went back and met every single person in my mind, every situation. I went one-on-one with them again in my mind and said, okay, let's now revisit this. And that's how you do it. That's how it works. Your mind chooses the path of least resistance. Your mind has the ultimate tactical advantage over you. It knows what scars you. It knows your fears. It knows your insecurities. And it protects you. Which is why I talked about the 40% rule in my book. The 40% rule is all about the brain has the tactical advantage over you. It knows and it keeps you away from all that. That's why it says don't jump out of an airplane. Don't go in the ocean where there's sharks. It's a protective mechanism. Don't go back to the place where your dad beat the shit out of you in your mind. Don't go back. The brain protects you, but protects you so much, it doesn't allow growth. So the brain is an amazing thing, but the brain controls you. You must control it. You must take power over your own mind, or your mind will guide you into all the soft places that your brain wants to live in. Your brain has enough information. It doesn't want to go through that process of mind hardening. It doesn't want to do that. I gotta remember what time I gotta be here, what time I gotta be there. This is where I want to stay. I'm peaceful. It wants to stay very peaceful and away from scarring. You have to be able to break all these big, humongous, painful things in life down to the smallest molecule, because that's all the brain can handle. The brain can't handle hours and hours and hours of suffering, but it can handle right now. I'm in the Pacific Ocean and it's very cold, and this is what I'm doing. Don't think about the rest of it. So that's what I learned from Hell Week. That's what I learned from being in 3 Hell Weeks. That's what I learned from all the military. I went to Ranger School. I went to all these different schools to learn all of that, to learn how the mind processes. So I talk about theorists. I talk about practitioners. A theorist is a person who reads a book, doesn't do it, reads a book, learns about something, and then talks about it. A practitioner is myself. A practitioner is a person like me. I wanted to be an expert in the mind, a mental toughness guy, beyond mental toughness. The only way to do that, in my eyes, is to put yourself in hell. Put it in hell repeatedly. Repeatedly put yourself in hell and study how you process it. And that's how I was able to come up with all these different ways, all these different tools to slow the mind down in hell. Because the mind just speeds up. The mind wants to get out of the painful situation, the suffering. It can't process it. So that's what I realized by going through all these different processes of being in Hell Weeks. There's some times where the mind gets overwhelmed and you cannot slow it down. But by these certain tools I developed, by not allowing your mind to get away from the moment. You have to think about the exact moment that you're in. But I saw when I was younger, the moment became too big. When it became too big, I spazzed out and I would quit. But now I don't think about even like an hour from now, I'll be eating. I don't even go there. Because then your mind, no, we must embrace this, because now you have to be a leader in this moment. It's not about you just getting through it. I had 5 guys, and 6 including me, in my boat crew. Now I was the boat crew leader. So now another trick is this. If you don't think about yourself, there's no pain. Which can also lead to pain later on in your life. But in these moments when you're struggling, if you are a true leader and you're worried about your men or women beside you, your mind doesn't care how cold you are anymore. Your mind's only worried about taking care of the men and women beside you. So I started realizing, man, if I take care of these cats to my left and my right in the worst moments, my mind is no longer thinking about, you're miserable, David Goggins. Get the hell out of here. You're thinking about, how was John? How was Andy? How was Sam? How was Pete? How are you guys doing? You're not thinking about me. So there's so many things you can do to get outside your own head to then allow your body to just be like, hey, we're just a machine. But you have to let your mind be able to process all these different tactics to do that. Take a different vantage point in life. When you are in the hell, you can't see the beauty of being in it when you're in it. Get on top of that mountaintop in your mind. Get on top of that mountaintop and look down on what you're doing. You can see a whole different world, and that world is beautiful. But you gotta get a different vantage point in the suck. Don't be in it. Spiritually, get out of it. Get that soul. Look down on what you're doing. Be amazed by the process of where you're at now and where you came from. We all have a voice in our head. Some of us are very spiritual, some of us are not, but we all have this voice saying, you're doing fucked up shit. This is wrong. Don't do that. The more you don't listen to that voice, the further that voice gets away from your head. Some people call it the Holy Spirit, some people call it God, some monks, whatever you call it. It's there. We all have it. It's the right or wrong voice. But the more we don't listen to it, the more that voice goes away. And the only voice you hear is yourself. When the only voice you hear is yourself, you're wrong. There's a voice that guides you through life. When sometimes it's guiding you in a direction that you don't want to go, that's usually the right place to go. It's that uncomfortable place. So that voice is always talking to me, but we don't listen to it. I listen to it. And when I start getting anxious, nervous, like we all know when we've done too much because it's telling us, I'm getting tired, I'm wearing down. But we go. I start talking to my fiance, hey, I'm doing too much. You start now, like I did in Hell Week, like I do all the time, the 1-second decision. It's that decision when your mind starts to get so amped up. Whenever you can't hear yourself think, you gotta slow down. Whenever you're living off a schedule, every day's a schedule, you have no time for yourself. When you start, and we all know it, I don't have time for this anymore, I don't have time for that anymore. That's when your mind and your body are saying, think about that. I'm neglecting my fiance, I'm neglecting my disciplines of life, I'm neglecting my reading, my learning, my workouts, my my diet, when you start neglecting all of that, you neglect one of them, you can neglect all of them a long time. It's going to haunt you. When you start seeing that, my God, I haven't eaten right in a long time, haven't been sleeping right in a long time, it can only be one of those things to take you off. So I'm very aware of my eating, my sleeping, my disciplines of life. And when I start to get too far away from them, it's a hard stop. Because what made me are the not just disciplines, the self-disciplines of life. And those are always in front of you. If you have any, they're always in front of you. So that's my hard stop. I realized that my mentality had to be very different. And what that meant was I had to put myself through a bunch of crucibles to gain the warrior mentality. Some guys are born with it. I believe that. Some guys are born because they have some great childhood and their dad's tough on them and they build this mental toughness and this discipline in this kid. I didn't have this. So I had to design a crucible to put myself through to gain this warrior mentality. So what I mean by warrior mentality, which is why some people take what I say so literally and they just say, my God, you're just crazy, you're gone. No. God had to put some people on this planet Earth to do very dangerous things to protect this country. Love it or not, I'm one of those people. So to have the mentality that I have, to be in a room that's 10 by 10, I have a weapon, I'm outside a door, I don't know what's behind that door. So our job as a SEAL, most of our job is to go behind, open a door, and say, surprise, we're here. The thing about the surprise is I don't know what's behind that door. So to have that kind of mindset to say, I'm gonna look at AK-47 in the face repeatedly, you know what kind of mind it takes to open that door and not be afraid to shut that door and run away? I was building that callous mind through these things, Badwaters, so even after I became a SEAL, I was still on the journey to become a better warrior.
Right.
And these races and all these events, I wasn't about being an ultra runner. I saw, first of all, it was about raising money, but also the selfish side of it all was I was building a warrior mentality by putting myself in the crucible of hell at mile 60 of a 135-mile race in Badwater. What are you thinking? Blisters, shin splints, stretch fractures, peeing blood maybe? What are you going to do now, David? How are you going to get the next 70 miles of this race?
Well, that's when you find out who you are.
Exactly.
You know, it's like everything builds to that moment. It's all about that moment and that decision that you have to make when everything else is stripped away from you.
Right.
That's going to reveal to you who you are.
Exactly who you are.
And what your character is. Right?
And what's good about that is a lot of people set these great goals, like they want to do Badwater, or they want to do an Ironman, or they want to be a millionaire, or whatever they want to do. They have these great goal lists, and they're amazing. Goals are important. But what we don't do in life, which is why people quit in SEAL training and they quit in these different things, we don't look at ourselves in the accountability mirror and take care of the number one thing before you start a goal. Let's take care of our insecurities, because they're going to surface when you put yourself in the crucible and you're suffering. You may be the best physically fit person on the planet. If you haven't handled your mind and handled your jealousies, your insecurities, whatever happened to you as a child and in between, they're going to surface at the time when your mind starts to question, why the hell am I out here in this race? What keeps a person in the fight is having purpose. Having purpose. Leave the ego at the door, because the ego will kill you every time. You will always quit. So that's why I've been able to get through things, because I know I was a scared, uneducated kid who stuttered and had zero. And I had to look at myself in the mirror and hold myself accountable for who I wasn't and who I wanted to be. Everybody's journey is different. Everybody's journey is different. I was on a journey to see who David Goggins was. And that journey took me in some of the hardest areas a human being can even imagine. And right now at 41, I'm the happiest person on the planet, because, you know, I had to climb Mount Everest several times just to look down on my life to see what hell I came from. And that's what kept me going through all this stuff. Like I envisioned myself going through, like when I was a young kid and they called me all the time. My dad beat the hell out of me and I had no self-esteem. I had this vision of, if I can make it to where I want to go, imagine when I look back on my damn life, how proud I will be. And now I'm here. I'm able to look back on this life I lived that many people will never understand, because why? When you're passionate, they think you're crazy. And you can't even explain to people why you're doing or why you did what you did, because you found your purpose. And once you found your purpose, you can't really explain it to normal people, because they don't understand passion, because they live everyday life just going, not really finding their purpose. So I become a foreign language to people. They think, so they put me in the category of, you're just crazy. No. I'm passionate. I found my purpose in this life. Well, I had to create Goggins because David Goggins was a weak kid. So I created Goggins. So the crucible of life that I decided to take to become who I wanted to become, I created Goggins. Goggins is the guy talking right now. David Goggins was a kid that got bullied and all these other things, and I created Goggins. None of it was external. I don't care about money. I didn't care about awards. I didn't care about medals. I didn't care about Badwater. I don't care about ultra running. These were all things for me to build the internal in myself. Mm-hmm. So like people don't get it twisted, man. I did this to be proud of who I am as a human being. And most people live a lie. I hated the lie I lived. And the lie I lived was I was nothing, and I knew I was nothing. And my journey, I wanted to be something. I wanted to be proud of who I was, and it took me in that direction. 2013,
yeah.
I walked 105 miles.
Right.
And I spent 7 hours in the vehicle from having so many issues with my body. And everybody goes, why didn't you quit, man? You could have killed yourself. It's not about that, man. I'm not out here to kill myself. Don't get it twisted, man. It was, honestly, at that point, it became a whole new challenge. The challenge was always to do my best. But at that point where I saw my best was done.
Your best on that day, given whatever circumstances God gave you that day.
It was, so I took what God gave me that day and said, well, I had to readjust the goals. And I found happiness and joy and peace. And like, okay, man, we're going to reset this damn boy and we're going to walk 105 miles.
Right.
And we're going to get to the finish line and you're going to walk 105 miles of Badwater. It's going to be horrible. And that's what happened.
Uh-huh.
So once you find, my purpose was pretty much at that time to raise money for a foundation, but I can't say that was my only driving force. When you're in that much pain, I'm sorry, you're not thinking about raising money for a foundation. Right. I'm sorry, I'm human. I had to go dark. And going dark was I had to go to that straight, barbaric, animal mindset of like, as bad as I was suffering, the suffering, I had to make it work to my advantage. I had to enjoy, I had to embrace the suffering. I had to really see, man, now I'm at mile 70. I've never gone 70 miles before. What if I can go 30 more miles in this situation? I had to talk to myself very differently versus being scared of what I was doing in my body. Because if I thought that way, which a normal person should think that way, but once again, I have a warrior's mentality. I thought the exact opposite. What if I get through this, being this messed up? And it sparked my endorphins to say, if I can go 100 miles or 30 more miles, this messed up, where most human beings couldn't. I just did the what if.
Right.
And I saw myself finishing this race and the feeling I would have after I finished it, and it got me through it. A lot of us are being forced into solitude right now, in our homes, apartments, wherever we live. But we're also being forced into solitude in our own minds. Life is the most brutal endurance sport of all time. And that's what we have to love about it. We have to flip it on its head and love the fact that life continues to attack us. There are no fucking timeouts. You can't just go like in a fucking sporting event when the coach doesn't like something and call timeout. You have to figure shit out on the fly. You have to be that person who's always prepared. But the solitude right now that a lot of us are dealing with is what we don't want to deal with. It's the fact that we have to think about all these things that we don't like about ourselves. We like to use life as a big escape. That escape is not there anymore. All these distractions that we use, they're no longer there. This is the time right now for you to stop avoiding things. Get that pen and paper out. Look inside yourself. Stop looking at me or other people out here to be the hero of your story. This is time for you right now in all that solitude to get to know who you are as a person. Be alone with yourself. Write that shit down. Start to face these different things in life. Knowing one thing in life, we are all very fragile in this world. We have to know that when we die with some meaning and some purpose in this world. Stay hard. First thing you have to do is just to calm your mind down. The very first thing you have to do is don't give yourself a way out. Okay. You got to trick yourself also and say, you know what, I might quit, but I'm not going to quit right now. I might quit, but not now. Okay. So that kind of calms your mind down. Because if your mind knows, I'm not going to quit, it starts spazzing out even more. You're not going to quit, but let your mind think it has a little control over you. Give it a little cookie. Give it a little cookie, and then you can start processing. Sit there, calm it down, process. That's the first step in the whole journey, is you cannot spaz out when things get hard. And then, when you're able to calm down, you're able to think. If you're under a panic situation and your mind is spastic, are you in control? No one is. And that's what I realized. The worst decisions I make in my entire life is when my mind has said, let's get the hell out of here. We're done, this sucks, I'm over it. So that's the first thing in the whole process. And then realized, I call it the cookie jar. Something I invented years ago is you have to have something that fuels you in this time. So once you calm down, what's gonna get you out of the chair? What's gonna get you moving forward? You gotta remember that I've been in times just as hard as this. So I reflected back on my life. I had a rough childhood, a rough upbringing that I talk a lot about in my book. So basically, that's kind of what I use. I use these different tools to get myself from point A to point B, and it's a process. So back in the day, what motivated me was overcoming myself. I saw myself as a very weak individual, and I wanted to overcome myself. And once I started reaching these different hurdles, I realized that we all had this superhuman potential. Now at 43 years old, I believe in being a leader. And there's a lot of times, like there's no need for me to get up in the morning time and go out for these long runs. I've done it all. I'm good. I'm retired from the military, did 21 years in the military. I've done it all. Now it's about setting the example for others to follow. So what keeps me going now is everyone wants to know, how do you become a leader? How are you a leader? Being a leader is sometimes the worst job in the world because you have to put yourself in some of the most uncomfortable situations of all time. For me to tell you to do something and I'm not doing it myself, that's what motivates me now. That's what keeps me going now, is that I have to continue to set the example. I can't talk it, I have to live it. You know, I believe that I can't talk about what I used to be. I used to be this guy that broke pull-up records. I used to be this guy that ran 100 miles, ran 200 miles. I have to still be that guy. And then when I'm not that guy anymore, I shut up talking about it. So I prioritize trying to win the battle in the morning. So I always win the battle in the morning. So I get morning time, every morning I go for a run. That's the first thing I do every morning. Haven't taken a day off of running since December 2016. Every day, up in the morning. So I also stretch out every day for about 2 to 3 hours. Every day. I've missed 2 days in about 5.5, 6 years. So that's just my routine. And about 4 days a week, I'm in the gym hitting the weights. Because you know, you can't just be a runner. So this is every single day, the monotony of my life. But this is what builds discipline. You know, and not everybody, I'm not telling everybody to do this, but this is my lifestyle. This is how I build self-discipline. I was that guy, if I was on deployment and we got off an op at 1 o'clock in the morning, I was in the gym at 1:05 in the morning. Every single day of my life in the military, no matter what I was doing, I gave 100%. So at 21 years, I was good with it. I went through 2 heart surgeries. I went from anywhere deploying. I was a recruiter in the Navy SEALs. I was an instructor as a Navy SEAL. I did it all, but the whole time, I also lived like it was day 1, week 1 of BUD/S. Even after I graduated Navy SEAL training, a lot of people who graduate something that's hard like that, they get comfortable. Even the biggest, baddest person in the world, they get comfortable. Every day of my entire life, I lived like it was day 1, week 1 of BUD/S. And so I take a lot of pride in that. That's why I don't miss anything. Because basically it was extremely hard to deploy, to be in workups where you're training to be deployed, and you're getting up early, getting after it, and you're still maintaining a high level of PT. Every day, push-ups, sit-ups, running every single day, along with doing the job as a SEAL. A lot of guys don't do that. But I learned that you have to be a good individual first. You have to triple down on your weaknesses, because a lot of times, like, you always count on your buddy next to you to help you out. Sometimes that buddy's not going to be there. You got to make sure that you are a jack of all trades and a master of all trades. And that's one thing, you got to have your buddy's back, they got to have your back, but you got to work on yourself every single day. And that's one thing that the military has to really, really triple down on. Is something that we're missing nowadays a lot, is that total accountability of every day going back to boot camp in your mind. You may have boot camp sucks. SEAL training sucks. All these things suck, and people are so happy to get out of it, but that's what makes you good. Remember how you were when you got out of boot camp? You're kind of all like robotic and locked in, and then it slowly goes away. You get comfortable, you start to sag a little bit, start to walk around. You start to lose that militant discipline. That's the one thing I learned not to do in the military, is the military teaches you these great codes, ethics, morals, values. You got to continue to work on those. Like everything, it's a muscle. You stop going to the gym, you stop running, you get weak. The military teaches you these great values of strength and honor and code and all these other things. But what we do is we don't keep up the discipline of all that stuff, and we lose it. So the one thing I learned is to not lose that thing, that boot camp, SEAL training, whatever you go through, whatever your A school is, whatever it is, keep that discipline up. That's the biggest thing. Even when I was going through my own hard times, like in pararescue training, when something got hard, my mind would spaz out and I would quit immediately. I didn't know how to handle it. I started realizing that you have to learn to control your mind in these situations. So at mile 70, when I was in the worst shape of my entire life, I was able to draw on being calm. Calm the emotion down. Emotion controls us. Emotion cannot control us. So I got a hold of my emotions, I calmed down, and I was able to really just sit there and say, okay, I'm in the worst shape of my entire life. I should quit, but let's not quit yet. You're dizzy, let's not get dizzy. So let's get some hydration, let's get some salt, some potassium, let's get some more nutrition in your body. I wasn't dizzy anymore. That's the first step. So then I said, okay, let's see if I can stand up. So I was able to stand up. So I wasn't thinking about, I have 30 more miles to go.
You're just going little steps.
I was going little steps.
Okay.
Okay, you know what? It's pretty amazing. I ran 70 miles. The furthest I ever gone in my entire life was I did this makeshift 26-mile run like years ago out in Guam with this other guy. So I'm way exceeded that. I've gone 70 miles. The first I ever gone was 26. So I'm thinking, that's kind of cool. So now I'm trying to give myself some energy here. Okay, let's see if we can walk a mile. After being in the worst shape of your life, peeing on yourself, going to the bathroom on yourself, now let's see if you can walk a mile. So I walked a mile. I said, you know what? Let's see if we can walk 2 miles. Walked 2 miles. Got to mile 81, and my crew person said, hey, you're not going to make the time. I said, let's see if we can run a little bit now. So I was able to run the next 19 miles. So what I realized here, and this is where I stopped scratching the surface and started barreling deep inside human potential was in this race right here. And I was starting to realize that we start to trap ourselves within our own mind. And our mind is this big barrier, this big wall. And once we get to pain and suffering, that wall gets bigger and bigger and bigger. And the mind says it's time to quit. If we're able to find out different ways to get around that, that's what happened to me, and I got around it. I had to invent this person. David Goggins is an introverted, soft kid that got beat up growing up, and mindset had to lie to create friends, to get friends, to be accepted. So my life has really been about two people. Very scary, but two people. I had to invent a whole nother human being to get outside of my comfort zone. And that human being became Goggins. Goggins is like the guy that walks out of the phone booth. He's like that Superman that walks out of the phone booth. And I was talking to my fiance today about, it's kind of strange how sometimes I have a conversation between David Goggins, and Goggins will tell David Goggins about the shit he's done. And David Goggins like, what the hell, man? Why are you doing that? That's nuts. So it's kind of this battle between trying to find more of yourself, knowing that the real you is afraid, likes comfort, likes living in a world that is that likes to pat you on the back, give you the things that you want to hear, not the things that you have to hear to get better. So that's where all this kind of started from. And when people hear this podcast, they're going to hear a lot of things that they're going to want to put a title on me. They're going to definitely want to put a title on me to make themselves feel better. I asked them during this podcast, do not do that. Do not look at what you're going to hear. Put a title on me, because basically what you're doing is you're giving yourself a get out of jail free card. Exactly. That's all you're doing. So all you're doing is saying, this guy was some super freak. He found some super thing in his brain that was locked up. He unleashed it and became this guy. It's a fucking lie. Because every day I wake up, I dread the day. I dread the day of what I'm going to bring on myself to get better. You know, I was sitting on the couch, saw this show on Discovery Channel, and that started the process of, I think I want to be a Navy SEAL. So I started calling up different recruiters, walking into some guy said to me, you're fat and you're black. He was an observant motherfucker. You know, I was 300 pounds, black guy walking, he was very observant. So that kind of went on for a while, and until I met one recruiter. And one recruiter saw something in me that no one else saw, and gave me a shot. And
a challenge, right? Come back, lose the weight.
Right. So basically I walked in, I had about 3 months, a little less than 3 months to lose 106 pounds. So I was like, this is fucking impossible, man. I can't do that. And at that time I had no real drive to be a Navy SEAL, to be anything. I just knew something had to change. I had to, this isn't gonna work, man. This lifestyle that I'm living, something has to change. So I went to work that day and I was spraying for cockroaches, and lo and behold, it's a very bad day at work. I found a whole bunch of cockroaches, rodents. It was a bad restaurant. And I came home, I quit my job that day. I was driving home and I said, I gotta fucking do something. And I said, I'm gonna go home and run 4 miles. And 4 miles is only a quarter mile. And then from there, the story really begins from that point. Well, that's what I realized for myself was I wanted that comfort zone that everybody looks for, that pat on the back. They don't want to hear all the bad shit. They want to hear everything that they're doing right. And I realized that's what kept me in this world. That's what kept me in this world of not accomplishing anything. So what I did was I became that big, bad, nasty motherfucker that you don't want to walk into at nighttime. I became the roughest critic in the world on myself. And that's what changed me. I literally saw myself in the mirror. I saw the truth versus saying, you know, my dad did this to me from beating me, kids in school from calling me did this to me, my life did this to me, my fucked up broken foundation did this to me. I took that and said, you know what, well, some people may help this happen, but now I have to own this. No one's gonna come back to save me. No one's gonna come back on this fucking couch and say, hey, it's okay. You're gonna be okay. No, I'm not. I'm not gonna be okay. I had to realize I had to take a stand. I had to make a real stand. And it was painful to look at who I was, what the world and myself created. It created a very lonely, depressed, insecure man that would do anything just to have a friend. And I saw that as very pathetic. When you look at the truth, it becomes very ugly and pathetic. I'm really good at creating an enemy. I'm really good at creating something that I'm against. And I'm also good at, if you ever tell me something that I cannot do, I'm gonna let you know that I'm doing it. Right. Somehow you're gonna fucking know one way or another that I'm doing it. It may not be like in your face. I may make sure that I run across the daggone world. So then it's on the news and you turn the news on and say, how the hell
did he do that?
I want to do something that you know I'm here. I'm here. So every time I lose like a big significant amount of weight, I call that recruiter up and say, hey man, I'm here. I'm here. And before I knew it, man, this guy became almost like my best friend at that time. Because I started actually changing his life. He started seeing, wow, man, like, I'm glad I took a shot on this guy.
Right.
And not only did I lose weight, I had to go back and take the ASVAB test again. It was like a watered down SAT a couple more times just to get in the Navy SEAL. So it was a big process. So that 3 months was packed full of like failures, depression, even more. But what I found out in that whole 3 months, I lived a lifetime. In that 3 months, I started realizing if I can flip these insecurities upside down, if I can flip this fear, if I can flip all this shit that made me this depressed, insecure guy, if I can flip it and make it work for me versus against me, I started seeing the power in failure, the power in insecurity, the power in self-doubt. Because I looked at everybody, it may not be true, but that's how I looked at everybody as being way above me. I thought to myself, if I can be at the lowest part in the world, in the sewer, and be able to overcome all this shit, I started using that as power. And I slowly started passing the guys from Harvard, the guys from MIT, the guys who were from great families and shit. I'm like, oh my God, I'm catching up. I had nothing. So I started flipping it and using it as power. Well, there's something that I invented a long time ago. And when you have nothing to draw from, I was able to find strength in every molecule of this earth. I'm able to be in a room with nothing, with no motivation, no inspiration, nothing, and find it. So what I did in those situations was I invented this thing called taking souls. When everybody's all fucked up and you're exhausted and you're weak and you're tired and you're looking around and everybody looks as bad as you or even worse, I'm like, you know what? I want to now make a statement. It's the perfect time to make a statement. To let you know where your life ends and mine begins. And so the statement there is, I muster up every bit of strength from their looks on their faces and how they feel, and how I'm gonna now, from my childhood, where I came from, how I was the bottom of the barrel, I'm now amongst all these uncommon people. I'm now going to now make you feel like you're common. So I used their sadness, their weakness, their parts of their life where, God, this sucks. I'm like all poopy pants and messed up. I used that for my strength. And I have this moment of like, let's say we're in the sand, we're running or whatever. I will do a surge. I will do something when everybody's like, how the fuck is he doing this? And from that look on their face, that feeling of, God, man, this guy must be something special. It then surges me further and faster and harder for a long time. So energy's everywhere. But the thing is, it's so loud, that voice in your head of pain and suffering and discomfort and I don't want to do this is so loud that you're unable to really calm it down and say, okay, there's something here. It's a patient calm that you have to bring yourself to say, I know I have something here, but that voice is so powerful that it wants you just to, let's leave.
Right.
We're done. It spazzes you out and you want to go. versus saying, let's take a second. Hang on. Before we spaz the fuck out, hang on. And in that moment, you can think clearly and find that strength out there for you. When I was 297 pounds and I was fat as hell trying to be a Navy SEAL, the scariest thing in the world to me, even to this day, was that could have been the rest of my life. I thought then I was trying hard. That's the scariest thing in the world. I thought then, 297 pound, working for Ecolab, spraying for cockroaches, making $1,000 a month. I thought that was me at my 100% potential. Come to find out, a few years later, I wasn't anywhere near that. 106 pounds less, graduate Navy SEAL training, went on to do all these other things. Looking back on that, that was me trying hard. That's why people gotta understand, what is in us, we have no idea until we start trying hard. And I mean really trying hard, where you're obsessed with, hey, this is my new norm. My new norm is that, wow, this isn't always fun. It's not always meant to be fun. And that's when you know you're trying hard. We have the easy voice, which is that 20% telling yourself that I'm easy at 90% of my full potential, maybe 100% at that 20%. That's that voice that we all love. That's that very comfortable voice, that's that mommy holding you saying, it's gonna be okay. Doesn't care how good you are, just loves you. Just loves you no matter how messed up you are in life. That's where you wanna be at. So that's that one voice. This other voice that we walk very far away from is a voice saying, hey man, you ain't doing shit. So we try to get this voice out of our head completely. And we live over here in this land. So what you have to do first is turn up this voice over here. The voice saying things to you that aren't nice. That it's in our head saying, you know what, man, dude, you're not doing shit. You're not and it's not putting yourself down. People take this the wrong way in this new society. I'm not saying to put yourself down. I'm saying listen to the truth. And the truth isn't in the 20%. The truth is in this other part of your brain saying, look, man, you're wasting a bunch of percentage here. We have 80 more percent that we're not tapping into, because in this other 80% is suffering, pain, failure, self-doubt, darkness, and then a whole bunch of light. But to get to this light, you gotta go through all of this shit. So a lot of us know that. We know.
We do know deep down.
Yeah, I can get over here, but over here, man, this is much better, because I gotta go through this journey that is not fun. This from 20 to 100%, this shit in between is not fun. So we decide to live over here. So everybody goes, how do you do that? You know exactly how to do that. You know exactly, it's not a magic trick. There's nothing I talk about in that book that's a magic trick. It's all back down to a very primitive mindset of we just have to do. It's like breathing. Breathing becomes normal. Like we don't even know that we're doing it. That's how you have to live your life. When that alarm clock goes off at 4 or 5 in the morning, your mind says no. You just say, it's just what we do. It's what we do now. Because to get to where you want to go, the amount of pain involved, I'm not saying physical, I'm not saying you got to break yourself off. The amount of mental pain of how many times you're going to have to do something that you don't want to do to get to where you want to go is going to be, there's going to be more times you do something that you don't want to do than you are going to want to do it. And that's your new norm. That's your new norm. So then it's like breathing. And then once you do this over and over and over again, it becomes like breathing. I don't want to live this lifestyle, but to get to the other side of this, I have to. So if you really want it, you realize what trying is and what trying is not. You will not find toughness in a comfortable environment. Those of you who are listening to this, whoever hear this, you will not find it. I was trying to look for it everywhere. The only way you find it is to drown yourself in a position where you're just out of sorts, where you can't swim and you're drowning. Where you're drowning. You're drowning in life. But you say, you know what, man? Fuck that. I'm gonna figure out how to fucking backstroke or fucking something. They have to work. And then you start to engage parts of your mind that you never engaged before. But you can't engage it by sitting back in these nice chairs, drinking this nice water, talking to you, talking about what I want to do. That's where the 40% thing comes in. It comes in when you're in suffer mode and you say, I'm not going to quit. You're forcing your brain now to operate on a level it's not used to. Your brain is the most powerful weapon in the world. Once you put away your phones and your computers and all that shit we have nowadays, yeah, it's great. We're up to date. But your brain is the only thing you have when you're going through depression, when you're going through hard times, when you're going through death, real life shit. You can't Google that shit, man. You're alone. You're alone. You may have a shrink you're going to, you may have a best friend you're going to, but there's 24 hours in the day where you're alone in this brain, and your brain is talking to you in all kind of ways, and it wants to control you and pull you in these different pockets. If you can't control your own brain and your brain controls you, you're fucked. You got to tell your brain where you want to go and how you want to go and how you want to get there. You got to control it. If not, it's over. It's over.
And all of that you learned from your own brain. You didn't Google this shit. No. You didn't buy books.
It didn't exist. This shit didn't exist. I couldn't even fucking spell Google back then. This shit didn't exist, man. What existed for me was, okay, man, how am I gonna fucking make this work? And all I knew back then was hard work. The only way anything gets accomplished. That's all I heard back in those days. You gotta work hard. You gotta work hard. I'm not getting I can't get this paragraph. I can't remember what the fuck's in this paragraph to pass this test to get in the military. Read again. Still not getting it. Read again. But if you're not getting it, write it out. And that's how I started learning. Okay, well, I gotta write out every fucking thing I do. And then write it out again, and write it out again. And guess what happened? I got it. I got it. I can't swim. I'm negative buoyant. Go back again. I can't swim. Go back again. Go back again. Go back again. I got it. I realized if I keep going back and going back and going back until the shit just becomes, your mind will say, fuck, okay, we're gonna figure it out.
It'll find a way.
Because he is not going to stop. It's not like, I'm gonna try one more time. No, it's just like alarm clock goes off, boop, we're going back. I can't read right, we're going back. I gave myself no way out, and my mind realized that. They said, okay, we're gonna adapt and overcome now. I talk about the new norm. When I lived in a $7 a month place when I was growing up for a short period of time, I loved it. I didn't know any different. That was my norm. Once we moved out of that place, we moved to a $236 a month place. I was like, shit, I never want to go back to that little piece of shit. But if you go back to that $7 a month place and you realize this is where I live, this is all I got, your mind says, roger that, this is home. So when I was going through Navy SEAL training for 18 months and going back through all the hard parts over and over again, I told myself after the first time, I knew it was gonna be a long journey there. My body was breaking down. It was just how it was going on. I said, you know what, this is my new norm. So my mind said, it's like going to work. Like you go to work, you put your suit and tie on, I go into suffering every day. Every day, suffering, being broken, duct taping my feet up, stress fractures, shin splints, being broken. This is my new norm. And your mind says, if we're not broken, this ain't normal. We gotta be broken. So then your mind starts to get tougher and tougher and more callous. People go, how did you run on broken feet? Broken shins. My mind knew this is how we operate. We're in Navy SEAL training. This is what we are. I became hell. And that became my new norm. I gave myself no way out. There was nothing outside these walls of hell. Nothing. I loved God, but for a short period of time, I became the devil because that was hell. I became the boss, the owner, the CEO of Navy SEAL training. That was my mindset. And that's how you get through things. You immerse yourself in wherever it is, and you become that. You become that and give yourself no way out. When you really sit back at your life and you are in that dark room and you're looking at where you started from and you tell yourself, God, dog, man, my mom is this way. My soon-to-be stepdad got murdered. My dad beat the shit out of me. I can't read and write to save my fucking soul. I've lied about it to everybody. I've cheated on all these tests. My God, man. And then you put a goal in your mind. How are you going to feel, man, when you accomplish this goal coming from that shit? Coming from the fucking hell you came from. A lot of people start from a good starting point. They have a good foundation. What if you can surpass all of these motherfuckers? What if everybody who was fucking way up here started up here, and you started with no legs. You had to grow fucking legs to even start walking, and then crawling, and then running, and then you start passing people and all this given to them. I had to use all this negative shit that was making me weak and horrible as a person. I had to use this as the power that now fueled me. I had to flip it on its head and say, hold up. This might be exactly what I need. The darkness is exactly what I need. It's how you look at your situation. And I was looking at it all fucked up. You have to first accept it before you can fix it. A lot of people walk around, oh man, I'm good. I'm good. No, you're not. You have to accept what you're not. And people don't want to do that. And that's the only way you can fix it. You have to accept it first before you can go on the journey. A lot of folks never even start the journey, man. They never start the journey because they live in this fake life that who they want to be, they act like they are, but they're not because they haven't fixed all this stuff yet. You got to fix this first before we can start our journey in life. So that's why I have them make this list. You fix these problems, now your journey can begin because you no longer care about how people are judging you. When you care more about how someone's judging you, you're going to stay right there. There's no forward momentum. Each thing that is wrong with you has to be a focal point. You can't look at this gigantic list and say, I got to change all this shit. My God, this is crazy. No. You take off the first one. I want to be smarter. For me, that was my thing. I have to become more intelligent. I have such a severe learning disability, man. I can't retain shit. I had to now get that one thing and then strategize in that one problem. How can I do this? I'm not going to learn like you. I'm not going to learn like anybody else. How am I going to figure this out? So I then figured out, okay, where are my strengths here? Where are my weaknesses in learning? All right, man, how am I going to do this? And I figured out a way to do it by just strategizing. So how I learn to this day, if I have a big manual to study, I will have to get a bunch of spiral notebooks from the daggone store. And each page, I have to write each page out, maybe 10 times. So there was a 1,000-page dive manual that I got 18 months before I went to dive school. Most people, I'm not smart, I'm gonna go see if I can pass this test. I realized, hang on a second, I'm not smart. How can I get past this? How can I get through this obstacle? I need to acquire this book 18 months in advance because it could take me 18 months to write down each page over and over again to then put it to memory. So when the question came up, I had written that question so many times down on paper that I can recall, okay, page 71 was where I remember seeing this, and I can recall it that way. And that's how I did it. So you got to strategize on each problem you have in life. Slowly break down that problem. Don't think about all the problems you have, just one at a time. And before you know it, you fix all these problems, but you cannot focus on all of them. Just on the one thing at a time.
There's a concept in your book that it permeates the whole book, and I think really is one of the most important things for people to understand in their own life, certainly to understand you, and it's the notion of detesting mediocrity. Talk to me about that. How did you instill it in your life? How can other people instill it in theirs?
It's one of the biggest things in the world. A lot of us, mediocrity is everywhere right now, and we're all trying to find an easy way out, and we're judging ourselves. Let's say there's 10 people in this room, and we're all mediocre, but I'm the best of the mediocre people. I now think I'm great. I'm great. We surround ourselves around people that make us feel great. They tell us what we want to hear. The second we put ourselves amongst the uncommon people, we don't like that feeling, that challenging feeling of that person who's waking up at 3:30 in the morning and say, hey, put your shit on, we're going for a run. We don't like that challenge. We like that person who says, hey, you know what, man, I don't feel good today, man. And they say, oh, it's okay, brother. We'll take a day off, man. We'll get a pizza and shit, watch the game. We like that. We love that feeling. Why? Because you understand, man, we're good, bro. We don't want that motherfuckers like this. Hey, man, no, bro. Get your fucking shit on, man. Stop being a punk. We don't want that in our lives. We don't want that person who's constantly challenging our weaknesses. We want that person who's constantly, making us feel nice and good and secure in ours. That's the mediocrity of life. We want to be the best amongst the average people. People wonder, how do you stay hungry all the time? Because after I accomplish something, I don't sit back like a lot of guys who graduate buds, graduate this, graduate that. They get comfortable. They wonder why I'm getting weak, man. I don't know, I lost my edge. What's going on? Because once you hit the top of the fucking mountain, guess what happened? I'm good. I'm good, so you wonder why you're falling down now. Because once you reach the top of the mountain, you got to build a fucking another one. That's mediocrity. There's a lot of people in mediocrity who have a nice resume, but they're one-timers, man. They hit a one-time deal, they busted it open, got a lot of money, but they're good. You're mediocre now, man. What are you fucking doing today, tomorrow, the next fucking day? That's why I don't listen to theorists. I don't listen to all that bullshit. I listen to a motherfucker who's like this, man. What's wrong, man? I'm fucking tired, dude. Why are you tired? Because tomorrow, I gotta do the fucking shit again, man. Whatever the shit is that made me fucking nauseous and sick to my stomach, it made me hurt. There's no ending. And that's the person I listen to. That's the person who's gained knowledge. You gain knowledge through suffering. And on the other end of suffering is a world that very few have ever seen. It's a beautiful world because that's where you find yourself. You don't find yourself in over here. You find yourself on the other end. Like the 100-mile race I was on, I ran it for 24 hours. I found myself on the other end of that fucking race. That 19 hours, I found, wow, there's a whole nother fucking world out here that I've never even saw. But the world is in your mind. And that's what all that mediocrity is about. Mediocrity is contagious. I'm a very philosophical person, and I'm gonna go there with you real quick. I believe in a higher power. Don't know the name, don't know where it's coming from, don't know anything like that. But I believe that this power, and visualize with me real quick. Let's say it's a man up there or a woman, whatever, and they have a chart. And when you're born, they say David Goggins, born February 17th, 1975 at 6 a.m. They write the chart down because they can see everything. They know exactly what you're fucking supposed to be. They know what you're supposed to be. You die, you go to so-called heaven. You arrive at heaven, I'm 300 pounds. I retired as an Ecolab guy, which is okay. It's just a job, whatever. I go up there and God looks at me and he shows me my chart. And my chart on there says you were supposed to be a Navy SEAL. You're supposed to weigh 185 pounds. You're supposed to be one of the smartest people on the planet, this, all this. You see this. And now you're in heaven, you made it to heaven, but you're like, God, Doug, I was supposed to live that life. I was supposed to live that life. And then you find out that the reason why, because we all think that if we pray on it, if we do this, if we do that, whatever, if we don't work, it's going to magically happen for us. No, I believe that when I'm all said and done with, my whole job is to outwork the chart. Whatever the fucking chart says about me, the all-knowing power up there, I want to get up there and say, him look at me and say, I know everything. I didn't fucking see this. I didn't fucking see this. I want to feel that. I want to get to the other end of this fucking world, and however I'm being judged, whoever's judging me, to look at me and say, I did not fucking know. I had you at 185, I had you at this, but all this other shit, I was riding as you were living it. I want to find more. All I can. And in that fucking sack of shit, you have to dive in that to find more. Because if you're not willing to go in there and face yourself, you're not gonna find anything. You're gonna live right here on surface, man, right here on surface. So if there is an ending to this world and there is somewhere to go and there's a judgment, you're gonna get there and you might see a chart. And that chart may tell you who the fuck you should have been. And now you get the rest of your life to think about that. Man, I could have lived a much better life if I just would have just suffered a little bit more. If I just would have went in that shit and realized I had so much more. But fear and the 40% and living here versus living here, being afraid, stopped me.